Let's get this merch. Subscribe to the PDH Network. Alright, I'ma just get right to it. Check this out, man. You got some folks out there saying Boosie may be part of the whole Duke the Jeweler setup. That Boosie may have paid some street guys out there that's from Houston to set up Duke the Jeweler and get his $2 million worth of jewelry that he brought with him out to Houston. Because like I told you guys before, Duke the Jeweler, he was not only there to attend that concert that somebody invited him to, but you got J.Prince Jr. and Boosie. Somebody's not telling the truth based on who sent that invite to Duke the Jeweler to come from Chicago to Houston. So again, Duke, he was not only there for that concert, he was a businessman. He was there to have a business meeting with other jewelers that's from Houston. So with that being said, you got some folks saying, maybe you got some jealous jewelers because you just can't go to somebody else's environment and start promoting or selling your product where they usually do business at, because that's affecting their numbers. And that's how a lot of people see it. But then you got some people on the other side that's basically saying, no man, trust me, Boosie, he basically told them himself, not just in the Vlad interviews, but also during a regular conversation about Duke the Jeweler. Because you got some folks who feel like Boosie's not telling the truth based around knowing Duke. That wasn't the first time that Boosie met Duke. That actually around 5 or 6 years ago, around 2017, 2018, it's a picture floating around of Duke and Boosie. They was at the same event where Duke, he was standing next to Boosie, where it seemed like they had a conversation. So that's the reason why a lot of folks is just not believing Boosie when it's pertaining to Duke the Jeweler being set up out there in H-Town. Because again, a lot of folks feel like Boosie is just not being honest. Nobody is saying that Duke and Boosie was best friends. But at the same time, for Boosie to go in these interviews saying that he never met or seen Duke until that private event is just not true. And where it is, they was even gambling the first time that they met. So it's just a lot of suspicious activity based around the guys who allegedly set up Duke the Jeweler. Again, who may be connected to J.Prince Jr. MobTies or Boosie guys. Because it's almost like they swept this under the rug. Like Duke family wasn't trying to get justice for his untimely demise. So at the same time, it's almost disrespectful that they look more into other cases and ignore what happened to Duke the Jeweler at the same time. But whoever was behind setting up Duke, you can tell that it was more based around removing Duke himself than getting to the jewelry that he bought with him. Because if that wasn't the case, they could have just grabbed the jewelry and left Duke alone. But again, you could tell somebody sent a message that they wanted Duke removed. Now, even though you got a lot of folks who may have swept this under the rug, but you got a lot of folks from Chicago, they didn't forget. Because Duke, he helped support a lot of families out of Chicago. He helped put a lot of his peers on who really didn't understand how to operate the jewelry game. That's when Duke the Jeweler, he took them under his umbrella and let them know, hey man, it's a market out here where we can all eat. We don't have to be in the streets engaging in criminal activity no more. We are now in a position to where we could do something more productive with ourselves, where we could bring a positive outlook back to our communities, because we all know they need that in the city of Chicago. And that's what Duke was doing, not only in the jewelry game, but also in real estate. Again, Duke, he put at least 5 families and homes under his real estate business. That's why the family and friends of Duke, you got a lot of questions that need to be answered. And it seemed like the HPD forgot about it. But the thing is, the feds didn't, because they'll chill back and act like they're not moving in on this whole Duke the Jeweler case. But they just waiting for a specific time to investigate or even arrest the right people. So that's the reason why there's so many people out there that's saying, hey, it got to be somebody that's affiliated with Boosie who was at that dice game watching Duke moves were the same ones who assisted in setting up Duke the Jeweler. Because it makes it very suspicious when you have Boosie and J.Prince Jr. saying they did not invite Duke the Jeweler out to that dice game. Well, how did Duke get the address? I mean, y'all got to be real. We got the whole Houston. How could somebody know where to attend this event if they was never sent the invite? And we can't forget, you also had some folks on the other side saying it could be J.Prince Jr. guys, because they was known for bringing bogus dice to the dice game, and also it was part of the whole checking in. They felt like Duke the Jeweler never checked in with those guys. They felt like he just popped up on the scene with all this jewelry and cash in hand at a dice game that was at Boosie's spot. Come on, man. It just don't make any sense. Similar to the whole Takeoff situation. Now, if y'all remember, the Duke the Jeweler and Takeoff dice game, they was barely, 3 months apart from one another. You had Duke the Jeweler. Folks got sent up at the end of July. Around the 1st of August, I want to say. Now, it's a little foggy because it wasn't too many reports that was written based around what happened to Duke the Jeweler on the night that he got set up. Then you had Takeoff. He got sent up on October the 31st, basically on the night of Halloween. So what I'm saying is, both of these cases are high profile and it's very suspicious based on what happened to these guys at the time that it did and who they was around. It's not like they was around anybody's. At J.Prince private event, it was a bunch of celebs in the building where Takeoff got sent up. And then at Duke the Jeweler, you had J.Prince, his guys. You also had Boosie and his guys. And if y'all pay attention at the dice game, Duke the Jeweler, he was in the middle of both sides. Now let me take y'all back because it's almost been a year since Duke the Jeweler's untimely demise. Matter of fact, let's pay our respects and say rest in peace to Duke the Jeweler, condolences to his family, and much love to all my folks in Chicago. See, I told y'all before, you got a lot of GDs, BDs, VLs, all that out there that's from Chicago that's basically putting the pressure on J.Prince Jr. and Boosie because they even want to know what happened to Duke. Now check this out. At first, you had people saying Duke got sent up wearing a bunch of jewelry when that's not true. Y'all could see it in the pics and clips from the dice game that Duke only wore one diamond chain with a watch and a couple rings. See, what I'm saying is, all this is sketchy because nobody really knew that Duke was a jeweler. And I got a feeling the ones who sent the invite to Duke, they knew he was a jeweler. Even at Boosie's private event, Duke only showed them the jewelry he bought with him because he had a few guys asking Duke who made his jewelry. Because at first they thought that Duke had his jewelry made from somebody out there in Houston. Maybe Johnny Dang or somebody else like that. That's when Duke had to let them know that he customized his own jewelry. That's when Duke went and got his Louis Vuitton bag full of jewelry to let them guys know what he customized. And once Duke showed them the jewelry that he bought with him, a couple of their eyes got bugged because they felt like they came across an easy come up. You know, like they say, a smooth lick. Because they know what they were sent to do, and that was to set up Duke. But y'all let me know in the comments, who y'all think had the motive to set up a black-owned jeweler by the name of Duke? Someone who actually had a career making moves in the jewelry game, which is definitely a different type of bag. So maybe the hit wasn't really about the jewelry, but removing Duke himself, because someone was jealous. But when situations like this happens, it shows how successful black men are not safe around their own people. And that goes back to Takeoff, Nip, and even Dolph. We want to say rest in peace to all those guys, because each one of those guys I just named was a benefit to their community. So with that, always be aware and always stay prepared. But hey, we got more in store. As always, y'all know what it is. Y'all know what it's worth. Let's get this merch. Subscribe to the PDH Network.